Good morning, everybody, and welcome to It's Not Just Magic. I am live today with Suzy Prudden. Suzy owns a publishing company called Itty Bitty Publishing and is a prize-winning international speaker, workshop and seminar leader, and best-selling author. Suzy, thank you so much for joining me this morning. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful this morning. It's a gorgeous morning in Los Angeles. It's a Chamber of Commerce day, as they say. There's blue skies, sun, and the perfect temperature.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes. That's why we moved to California.
I'm so glad that you're able to join us for the show this morning. Can you share with us a little bit about your path and how you knew it was time to step into your passion as a business owner?
Well, I've been a business owner since 1965.
Wow.
And when I was 22, I started my first company in New York. My mother had told me that I couldn't date the boy I was dating when I was in college. So I married him and we moved back to New York, which is where we were both from. And I started a company, a fitness company. My mother was the nation's foremost fitness authority in the 60s, 70s, 80s. She started in the 40s and 50s. And I have to say, I'm 78 years old. So when I mention these dates, it's logical that I would have gone through all of that at that time. And when I started my company, I didn't know at that time that I would become famous. And I did. I became famous as an expert, as a fitness expert. And I wrote a lot of books. I sold my first book at a cocktail party in East Hampton, Long Island. People don't do that anymore. They don't sell a book at a cocktail party. The editor there was Joni Evans from William Morrow. She was interested in what I was telling her about the program that I had in fitness. It was early in the fitness industry. I was teaching toddlers, and that wasn't done in the 60s. And so when I lost the screen, just a second, let me get back to you. It's so funny. Here we go. So when I started the company and I started teaching toddlers, I didn't know where it would go. I just did it because that's what I did. I didn't think, I just did it. And when I sold the book to William Morrow, I got an agent at William Morris. I did everything backwards. It was a great success. I did tours all over the country marketing my book, and I became very well known. That's that first career. I did that for 20 years. And then I sold it. I did body mind work. I was a pioneer in that industry. And then I sold that company. I moved to California and I became a hypnotherapist. I created a very large hypnotherapy. This is very funny because I'm thinking about it. It's going one after another after another. I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I had a hypnosis for weight loss. I had 4 offices in Los Angeles. 2008 came. I lost all of it. And I started a company called Suzy Prudden International. As a hypnotherapist and a coach, I worked with entrepreneurs to help them overcome the stuck spots that we all get, where I don't want to pick up the phone. I actually have a gold phone, teaching people how to pick up the phone and how to make the calls that they have to make as an entrepreneur. And then in 2014, my sister and I, my sister was my writing partner at the time, we wrote a lot of books. We had written a book called Suzy Prudden's Itty Bitty Weight Loss Book. It was a small book. It didn't sell. So I asked her to change the cover and to make it a smaller book. So she brought the book to me at the holidays and said, "How do you like this?" And it said, "The Amazing," not Suzy Prudden, "The Amazing Itty Bitty Weight Loss Book." And I looked at it. My ego had a moment. And I said, this is actually $1 million business. We don't have to write the books. In that instant, so you asked me when, in that instant, I knew that this is where we were going. And we opened the company 3 days later. We had our first signed author 2 weeks later. And then we had our first book published 6 weeks later. And as they say, the rest is history. It's an exciting company. it's a very exciting company because I give people the opportunity to write a book and to market themselves. And of course, you know that all about that because you're the branding expert. When you have a book and you have all these different things, then you become the brand, or your company becomes the brand. And so Itty Bitty is now my brand, although Suzy Prudden is actually the brand that I live with.
Yes. 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 That's and one of the things that we actually talk so much in our branding circles is it is so important to have both your personal brand and your business brand. I actually had one of my recent mentors be like, because she could tell I was bringing forward this brand and then I was bringing forward this brand. And she's like, you're still hiding behind the brand.
Oh, that's funny. No, you can't hide.
And she totally called me out on that. So
that's wonderful.
I could be like, okay, and then go back to the drawing board. And
you really have to. I mean, it's really stepping into your power and stepping into your brand. And it's funny because, okay, so I'm 78 years old. I started when I was 22. I stopped being Suzy Prudden fitness expert in 83. I wrote another book in 92, but I wasn't wearing that cloak. And yet today, when I'm in networking organizations or I'm out and about, and I'll have Suzy Prudden written here, people will come up to me and go, "Are you that Suzy Prudden?" And I say, "Yeah, I'm that Suzy Prudden." And that's years and years and years later. So, as you create the brand, and I know you know this, but those of you who are watching or listening, as you create the brand, you become that brand. You wear that brand wherever you go.
Right. 100%. Absolutely. Every time you step outside the door.
Yes.
You kind of have to be on.
Yes. And now not only am I the Suzy Prudden brand, but recently somebody came up to me and said, "Oh, you're the Itty Bitty lady." So what's wonderful is that Itty Bitty is now moving out into the world. And I'm very excited about it because they're wonderful books.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. What's the one thing or one story that you could tell us that has had the most profound impact on you or your business?
I think that the experience that had the most profound effect on me, my business, my life, and who I am in the world and what I do in the world is when I managed to lose everything and end up homeless. This is after all of my experiences with 18 national tours, having my own show on NBC, being the fitness reporter for the Today Show, all of this being known, literally people stop me on the streets in New York City, because that's where I'm originally from, and say, "Hi, Suzy, how are you?" And because my show's in New York. So I had all of this celebrity and importance, quote unquote, importance. I was an important person. And then I managed to completely mess up my life. And I ended up homeless. Now, I didn't live in the car or on the street. I managed to have extraordinary places to stay with friends for 10 months, but it was a very scary experience. I had to become extremely creative because I had, and this may sound weird, no money, none. And I had to create myself from the very beginning.
Oh, wow.
And I was 48 years old. So it was a very, very scary experience. And what I learned, and as I'm speaking to you now, I'm understanding what I learned because I don't spend a lot of time there in my head. What I learned was I can do anything.
Right.
I can do anything. I had to completely recreate myself. And so I did. And now when stuff happens, and in business, stuff happens. And we have ups and we have downs and we have really successful months and we have yikes, very lean months. And I have to really go back into that space of I can do anything. And I'm not alone. Truly, anybody can do anything, but they have to get into that space of, okay, this is what happened for me. Every morning, I would wake up and I would say, okay, God, what do I have to do to be okay and make money today? And I started doing stuff I don't remember, but I started creating new programs, new opportunities for myself, new works. And an example of how I did this was I was teaching a lot at Rancho La Puerta, which is a 5-star spa in Tecate, Mexico. And it's about an hour and a half. No, it's an hour east of San Diego. And I would drive in there Saturday morning, not knowing where I was going to be staying the following week. So Saturday morning, I had a whole week to figure it out. So Saturday morning, because I would be staying there as a teacher, I stayed there and I ate there. That was my home for the week.
Right.
And the following Saturday, I had to create some place for me to stay.
Oh,
and I did that for 10 months. Not Rancho Puerto for 10 months, but I kept having new places to create because, I had friends that invited me to stay with them because they all knew I was going through a really hard time. I couldn't impose that long. And so I kept moving, but I kept creating opportunities. That's really what it was. You can create opportunities for yourself. You just have to step out of the rule book because there are no rules. During that period in my life, I had to create the boundaries.
That's amazing.
I know. I think about it now and it's like, holy cow. How did I do that? I don't know. I just did it.
Wow. That's so awesome. And I feel like that goes so much with a lot of the things that I do. I work with a lot of psychics and I worked with a lot of mediums and so we have a lot of discussions about being in your power and being able to put yourself out there and know that, like, just trust that you're going to be successful, and it's doing the work and co-creating.
And trust is the bottom line. I couldn't do anything but that. When I realized what was going on, when I realized that I may completely ruined myself, it all happened in one day. It was in February of 1990. It's amazing how I remember this. And I had a whole bunch of jobs lined up for the year because I was a speaker and a coach, and I had all these different opportunities lined up, paid opportunities. They all canceled in one day. All of them. They didn't know each other. They just called me up and said, Suzy, we've got other things going on. We have to cancel your contract. And they can't, contracts are only as good as the people who sign them. So that all these contracts were canceled. And I'm sitting there going, okay, now I don't have any money. Then my rent check bounced the same day. And I'm going, okay, I'm in real trouble. And I looked up at the ceiling. I remember this. I lived in a beautiful little house in Topanga, which is just north of Los Angeles, in the mountains. I looked up at the ceiling and I went, thank you, God, you must really love me to give me this experience because it will change my life. The interesting thing about what I said was I meant it. Mm-hmm. And I really did mean it. And so when Gary Zukav asked me, so how did you do this? I'm sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
When Gary Zukav, who wrote the Seed of the Soul, when he asked me, how did you do that? And without thinking, I said, I leaned back into the arms of God. Now, I'm not a religious person, but I'm extremely spiritual. Mm-hmm. So basically, I was literally, okay, God, where do you want me? Where do you want me today?
Right.
Where do you want me today? And then I would be in that day. And it really gives you a different sense of self.
Right.
Because no matter how scared you are, and I was really scared. I was really scared. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what to do. And so I just did what was ever in front of me. And there's, I work with people who are going through hard times, and I don't say to them, well, I have a story for you. I don't, I never bring that up. But I know how scared people are when they go through hard times.
Right.
And then when my sister and I started Itty Bitty Publishing, because I've written a lot of books and I have a New York Times bestseller, I've done all kinds of things, and I've started over several times. What she and I wanted to do was to give people, entrepreneurs, coaches, the people that we surrounded ourselves with, the opportunity to get their message out in a way that people, 95% of Americans don't read, but they will read an itty bitty book because it's tiny. It's 30 pages. And it has, this is an itty bitty book. So for the listeners, it's a 43-page book when everything is, all the introduction and the table of contents and everything. So, but this is a book on space.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about this book, Pamela loves space. She knows everything about space. She takes people to look at the stars and she explains it all. She took this book to the Boys and Girls Club of America and said, you need to be talking to your kids about space because they're going to be exploring space when they're adults. They're going to be traveling into space as adults. And they said, you're right. So she is now negotiating with the Boys and Girls Club of America to speak to all of them, all of their kids. It's a national organization. And buy the book. There are 4 million kids in the Boys and Girls Club of America. That's a lot of books. And so that's the kind of thing that Itty Bitty does. It gives people the entree into opportunities that are vast.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I know.
Being that it's a short, it's like, oh, okay, that's easy.
Yeah, I know. We're getting these books into airports now because we're opening up.
Oh, that's
again.
perfect.
So can you imagine? For somebody who looks at this book and they go, "Oh, I can read that on the plane. That's a little book. Yeah, I'll take it." And it's information. Yeah. It's all information. It's like there's no fluff. Right. When my sister and I started, we said, no story. We don't want story. We just want information. And it's written in numbered sentences and bullet points. It's a 20-minute read. You get all the information in 20 minutes. This book, and for those of you who are listening and can't see it, is a real estate book. It's a book on staging, sell your home book. And what it is, there are no pictures in itty bitty books. So what this gentleman did, it was brilliant. He wrote all about staging each room in your house on one page. And on page 2, he had all of his different website places for them to go to look at the pictures. I have real estate agents all over the country calling me to order this book. They give it to their clients so their clients can stage their own homes and sell their homes for a higher price. That was brilliant. And awesome. Pardon me?
I said, that's awesome.
I know. That's the kind of stuff that happens with an itty bitty book. Starts very small because it's an itty bitty book. And then it just expands and expands and expands. So I say itty bitty books are small books that make a big difference.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And as a branding expert, you want your people that you're working with to be everywhere.
Yes.
So that whenever they enter a room, people know who they are. People know what they do. So when somebody came up to me recently and said, oh, you're the itty bitty lady, I knew that our company's we're going into our 7th year. So I knew that we had crossed over that line where, who are you?
Itty
oh, bitty. You're the itty bitty lady. Yeah. And I'm short.
So it
works. Yeah. I'm a little lady. So it's like I am an itty bitty lady, but it's itty bitty books.
That's awesome. Actually, it was because I hopped into the second session for Women's Prosperity Networking yesterday, and I heard the name Itty Bitty Books and Itty Bitty Publishing tossed around a couple of times and mentioned. So I was like,
oh, good.
Hey.
I wasn't there. That's fabulous, because I do have quite a few people in Women's Prosperity Network who are writing books for Itty Bitty.
Oh, that's awesome. Very, very cool. So what would be your advice that you could give someone who's just wanting to develop their business?
That's a fabulous question. And basically, hang in there. Bottom line, hang in there. And there are certain things in business that people don't want to do. For example, when you're marketing your business, when you're out there and you get leads, people who want to work with you, a lot of people just put them aside and don't do anything with them. When I get a lead, I put it in a spreadsheet, and I have an appointment setter. My appointment setter calls that person and calls that person and calls that person until either they say, I changed my mind, I don't want the appointment, or they make the appointment. And a lot of people say, well, I've made a couple of calls, I shouldn't bother them. But when I had somebody as an appointment setter say that to me, I've called them twice, I don't want to call them again to bother them. I said, it's funny, that's your job description. Bother them. Because I've had people where we've called over a year and a half, or not every day, but every 4 to 6 weeks we call. A year and a half later, after I met her, she signed up to do a book. And she said, thank you. I was ill and I couldn't respond, and you kept calling. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I think primary, when you're starting a business, look at all the things that you have to do and do them.
Wow. Yeah.
You can't say tomorrow and expect today to work. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And if you have a lead, it's just call them and get rid of the yes buts. So what I do when I'm working with a client who's going into business, I have them take a piece of paper and draw a great big circle, and then write yes and then but in the center of the circle. Then I have them take their pen from 2:00 and bring it down to 7:00. So there's a great big line across the yes but. In other words, no more yes buts. Don't even let it come out of your mouth. Just, as Nike says, do it.
Right.
That's a brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought that up as well, because I do feel like there are so many entrepreneurs, they'll get started down their path and they'll get started down their journey, and then they have a hard moment or a hard day or maybe a hard week, and then they'll just be like, I give up.
So I've had many coaches, and I had one coach, Allison Maslin of Pinnacle, and that's a major multi-million-dollar company.
Mm-hmm.
And she says to us, even at millions of dollars, they have moments when, oh my goodness, what are we going to do now? There was, for example, they were doing massive advertising on Facebook, and then Facebook changed and they couldn't advertise there, and they had put a lot of money into that. Right. All of a sudden, that door was shut. And what are they going to do? So you have to regroup.
Right.
And again, okay, perfect example is the pandemic. Mm-hmm. When we all shut down. I was supposed to be on the road that week. That was in March 15th, 2020. And I was supposed to be on the road. I came back from San Diego Sunday night, was supposed to leave for Santa Cruz on Monday, present in Santa Cruz, then go to Santa Rosa on Friday, and then Friday night go to Las Vegas, and then come home on Sunday. And now I'm sitting in the living room thinking, I can't go anywhere. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And so in that moment, you can't just say, well, I'll just go back to bed and pull the covers over my head. You have to say, okay, what am I going to do? And that's when I started looking for opportunities online because I couldn't go out of the house. I mean, I could go out of the house to the market, but couldn't do business out of the house.
Right.
So that's the thing with, the pandemic is a major experience where we had to pivot. But
right.
in everyday life, you have to pivot.
Right.
A door closes and it's like, oh, okay. I guess I better do something else now.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And I do feel like the pandemic just made such an opportunity for, because I feel like in two ways I saw the people who were really resistant to that change. And then I saw and they really struggled. They struggled a lot during the pandemic. And then I saw the people who made that quick shift, that quick, like, okay, this happened, and now I'm just going to pivot this direction and do this. And it was like, they just exploded. So
well, I made more money in 2020 than I made in 2019. And I didn't leave my house.
Yeah.
And then one of the things was interesting because the Women's Prosperity Network did the same thing. They were not an online business. They didn't, they're located in Florida. Right. Now, I've known of them for 10 years, but I didn't join because they were in Florida. I didn't want to fly from Los Angeles to Florida. Right. Now, I do fly all over the country, just didn't want to go to Florida. Right. Now I can't wait to go and because now I've been a member for 2 years. If they have an event, I'm there in a heartbeat. But at the time, it was too much for me. So now they're online. Bingo! I joined immediately. Yeah. And that gave me the opportunity, instead of being fairly local, staying on the West Coast. The furthest east I went was, I think, Las Vegas, which is only a 5-hour drive from here, or a 1-hour flight. So, but I stayed mostly West Coast. Now I'm all over the place. I have an author who I'm speaking to later today who's in Greece. I have one in Hawaii. So it's very exciting.
That's awesome. I actually know a couple of people I could send your way to well, I've got a friend that's currently working on a book, but she does mediumship.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that. I love mediumship. I love all of that because it's real.
Yes.
It's real. And people go, what do you mean it's real? It's real.
Absolutely. I've actually been in my mediumship classes, and someone will do a reading for me, and it'll be one of my grandparents that comes in, and I don't know the answer to the question, but I'll write it down and I'll take it to my mom and be like, can you what's the end? So I'll ask it in a way where I'm not giving her the fact that I got, and she'll verify all the information, and she'll be like, why are you asking? And I'm like, oh, because I'm in I was in my mediumship class, and this is what came up and this is what came through. And she goes, well, I don't believe in any of that. And I'm like, great. Well, how was I to know to ask those questions?
Yeah, I know.
Like,
there's no way to get out of that one. There's no no. Yeah, when I've done work like that, and it's real. It's like, oh yeah.
Absolutely. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your experience and your stories with us. And this has just been so fabulous. Thank you so much, Suzy.
Well, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity.
Absolutely. Everyone, we'll see you next time. All right.